Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Citizens Review. I'm your host, Aaron Ferguson. First up tonight, we're going to start by reading a speech that's all too familiar to some of our brothers and sisters in the northern Bahamas. There are many people in the Bahamas who are participants in and interested in the economic development of the Bahamas. Not all of them, however, are cognizant of or interested in the economic and social welfare of the Bahamian people. Far too few acknowledge and fewer still accept the fact that development must be shaped to fit the human and social needs of the country where it takes place. Far too many here adopt the attitude that they have certain guaranteed rights to make money, and that is all that matters. Freeport had indeed been a miracle of economic development. It has indeed been an example, a shining example, of financial wizardry. What it lacks is humanity. What it needs is a social conscience. And what it must have before too long is a soul. I have always been concerned about the lack of soul in Freeport, the absence of the honest concern for human and social needs of people. I was so concerned in the days when I stood almost alone. I had hoped that an early change would have been evident by now, but I have been severely disappointed. It is a fundamental part of my basic political philosophy that people are more important than things, that men and women are more important than machines. In this Commonwealth of Islands, that philosophy can quite fairly be interpreted to mean that Bahamian people are more important than things, and that Bahamian men and women are more important than machines. In this city, where regrettably almost anything goes, where promisingly some economic opportunities have come to Bahamians, Bahamians are nevertheless still the victims of an unbending social order, which, if it now refuses to bend, must be broken. That speech was given on Saturday, July the 6th, 1969, almost some 41 years ago. Sadly, that same speech still applies. Freeport, Grand Bahama is still bending. Freeport is still breaking. We'll be back after these messages. We are the citizens. And up next, we'll run the review. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Citizens Review. Before the break, we read to you the famous, or for some people, the infamous Bend or Break speech from Sir Lynden Pindling in 1969. Now, this show, we're going to focus on Freeport. We're going to talk about the many issues. I'm going to encourage some of our politicians today. This book was written by Patricia Beardsley Roker from Island FM. It's called The Vision of Sir Lynden Pindling. Follow the manuals. I have this book here too, The Face That Moved the Mountain. Just follow the manuals. These fellas sat down, they wrote the books, they gave the speeches, they gave us all the answers. We're going to try to follow that or get our politicians to take a page from these books. On the show with me today is Grand Bahama community activist and the famous voice of Freeport, Mr. Troy Garvey. With him, Travis Williams, the chairman of the Grand Bahama Committee for Concerned Residents. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming to Citizens Review. We appreciate your presence here, coming all the way from Grand Bahama, my hometown, to join us on the show. Now, first up, let's talk issues. We have a serious problem in Grand Bahama, especially in 8 Mile Rock, with Bahama Rock. That company has been supposedly, now y'all give me some of the facts. You live on the ground, your house has been shaken, breaking up, whatever happens when Bahama Rock does their explosions every day at 2 o'clock it is, right?
Supposedly.
What's going on with Bahama Rock? What are the issues? What are they trying to expand to do? Explain to people in Nassau, all over the Bahamas, and our viewers from the U.S., U.K., Canada, what's happening with Bahama Rock?
Okay, first of all, let me say once again thank you for having us. And the Grand Bahama Committee for Concerned Residents is a group of citizens who have accepted the moral mandate to oppose the further destruction of our natural resources.
Okay.
And to promote the preservation of the same for further generation. In doing that, we have had issue for some time now with Bahama Rock, as you have mentioned, and the practice of drilling and blasting. The practice involves drilling into the ground and, as the name implies, setting off explosive for the purpose of loosening the ground to be able to extract the aggregates. The practice itself is very dangerous to the environment, it's dangerous to our homes, it's dangerous to our ecosystem, and to many other factors. But all in all, what happened is we were first drawn into this idea because we realized that it was doing damages to the physical structures of our residents.
Okay.
And after realizing damages to the physical structure, you begin to ask yourself, if it's doing damage to the physical structure, what is it doing to the subterranean, to the underground caves and everything else that we can't see, to the water, to
now,
the...
when you say damages to the physical structure, you mean when they explode, when they do these underground explosions, the houses literally show cracks.
It would vibrate, and that vibration after time would reveal cracks.
Okay.
And we're talking about, in the area of Harbor West alone, we're talking about an area that's not very old and doesn't have very, very old houses, pretty much fairly new houses. But we're talking about a period of 10 years or so, the oldest houses to maybe 2 years. And basically you have areas where, for houses that are fairly new, they are showing damage and destruction. Mm-hmm. And I have asked anyone to compare it with any other subdivision anywhere else in Grand Bahama or elsewhere and see if houses from basically that age are having the same type of damages. But beyond that, what we found out after doing further investigation is that this thing is much more dangerous than just damaging homes. We found out that it's damaging the water system, it's danger to the wetlands, it's danger to basically the ecology of our island.
Yes.
And someone may say, what's the big deal if you collapse a few caves, or what's the big deal if you damage some caves, some caverns, and so forth? But the truth of the matter is, for example, the caves, and they were designed specifically underground to filter water underneath the island.
Yes.
When these caves began to collapse, then the water is no longer able to filter under the island. It comes over the island. It causes flooding. Mm-hmm. Flooding that is not necessary and would not be as severe had the blasting not taken place. There is the issue of the wetlands and the danger to the wetlands and salt water being put into the fresh water, damaging the water table. That same water that feeds the trees in the wetlands that allow it to grow, and it's not able to, or over a period of time, if the blasting continues, it would not exist. Fresh water would not exist in that area anymore. Just like if you drive through that area now, you see the dead pine trees.
Yes.
And eventually that's the fate of the wetlands if this continues. Keeping in mind that those wetlands make up a part of the second largest marine nursery in the world.
Right.
So we have a moral mandate to protect everything that God has blessed us with. And it was not because of anything that we had done, but certain things were just handed to us. And we're going to be accountable for the preservation of these things. And sometime down the line, we have to be able to answer to our children and our children's children and their children exactly how did we allow such development to take place that was so dangerous to the
This
future.
is serious. Now, Citizens Review, so that our viewers know, we went down to Grand Bahama. We met with the committee at the site. We have some photos of that we're going to show so that people can see that this show is a show about seriousness. We want to expose the issues full-heartedly. But my question is, I couldn't believe when I was driving up to 8 Mile Rock, and like you said, the pine trees were dead. All of the pine trees on the northern side of the road were completely just dead on on the whole trip up there.
You know, we took it for granted at one point, right? Because with the amount of hurricanes we've had, there were many areas where after the hurricane, the pine trees would appear dead because of the salt water that they had encountered.
Yes.
But after a few months, maybe a year or so, all of the other areas, they grew green again. So they were green, and the leaves were green, and the pine forest was back to normal, except that area right around the Bahama Rock plant.
Yeah.
It never recovered.
Never recovered.
It never turned green again.
Yeah.
And they're just sticks now. It's a pine graveyard instead of a pine forest.
Well, I mean, and all of the old people will tell you, when you see pine trees, that means fresh water.
Exactly.
Right. So that means that the freshwater lands underneath that area
Exactly.
has in fact been corrupted.
Exactly. It means that there's no more fresh water to feed, and pine trees require a lot of fresh water. So like you said, if you see pine trees, you know that somewhere around there's a lot of fresh water. And when you see dead pine trees, it means that water has been compromised in some way, and that is no longer existent.
Now, Mr. Garvey, you're 8 Mile Rock, Holmes' Rock fellow.
West End.
West End. Okay, all right. Now, there's a plan with Bahama Rock to cross the street
Right,
and move further into the west.
right.
What are the challenges with that plan? Why is it that you oppose that?
Well, the reason why we oppose it, first of all, I'd like to say I joined the Grand Bahama Committee for Concerned Resident Cause after learning from all the members and the president and everybody what they really was fighting. Because I was dumb to the fact of the whole situation with the wetlands and everything,
Yes.
even though growing up in West End. So I get to learn from them what they were actually fighting against with the Bahama Rock issue. The fight for them not to go cross the Ghana Valley Highway is because once they cross that land, all the homes that were being damaged on that side from where they are now,
Yes.
what make you think that it's going to be any easier? It's going to be worse. They're going to dig up the rest of that land in the back there and leave another hole, a massive hole this time because it will run from basically in Bartlett Hill straight into Seagrave.
Straight up to the back
Of
of...
Seagrave,
All
where
along
there's a
the back
hole
of
right
8 Mile
now.
Rock.
Where there's a hole right now in the back of Seagrave.
Yeah.
So why should we allow them to do that? And all they here to do is dig rock. That's what they say.
And sell rock.
And sell rock. That's all they're
They're
doing.
making a lot of money, my brother.
Right. They are making a lot of money. I can quote Mr. Dave Barr, who has been doing his research, and in 2007, they were on the internet where they brag about making $1.9 billion after they came into the Freeport area.
Right from Freeport.
Right.
Yeah, see, this is why I say that the bend or break speech is still relevant. Because these kinds of operations are up and running in Freeport. And Bahamians, while we make some benefit, we ain't getting nothing out of it.
Right.
There is no such $1.9 billion influx of cash in Freeport.
No, sir.
So how is this person bragging of having made that money, but we don't see anything about it? Where that money coming from? What's going on for Bahamians in Freeport?
That's an interesting
and
question.
Grand Bahama.
You know, if, let's just say that Bahama Rock were spending a lot of money and doing a lot of community projects in the community, one could argue that at least they are,
Yeah, but they ain't even doing
but
that.
they're not doing that. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not a situation. You don't even have a good argument. Basically, it's more taking than giving.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got to go to a break right now, but I want to quote this part once more. It's a fundamental part of my basic political philosophy that people are more important than things, and that men and women are more important than machines. In 1969, 41 years ago. Same speech still relevant. We'll be back right after this break. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. We're back to our conversation about Grand Bahama and specifically Freeport. We have here Troy Garvey, our famous community activist and one of the best PTA presidents the Bahamas has ever seen for bringing a teacher that molests a child to justice, or several children, and he's being brought to justice as we speak. And we also have Dave Barr, a member of the Grand Bahama Committee for Concerned Citizens. Gentlemen, the container port. We just saw that issue. The tornadoes brought some of those cranes down. What are the issues there? What are the problems? Give it to us.
Well, what I would start with first is that there are major safety issues. I will draw an illustration to you as far as the cranes and the weather gauges. The weather gauges on the cranes, according to what the employees were telling me, the crane operators and the people in operations, they said that all of the weather gauges was disengaged. And I say disengaged, they have two lights. They have a amber light and they have a red light. The amber light indicates that when you reach up to 30 miles an hour wind out there, the amber light will come on and let you know that that's what's happening.
Okay.
The red light, when you see the red light come on, that means there's too much wind and the crane's supposed to automatically shut down.
Shut down.
All of those things were disengaged. So therefore, with the accident that happened last week, you had one or two of the people locked down their cranes, but they were told to go back to work. They had stopped operation at some point, but they told them to go back to work. But when the crane driver saw what was happening, they locked the crane down, and they were willing to just leave.
So they got threatened their jobs to
Right.
get up.
Go back to crane or go home.
My goodness.
And that's what's been happening. And Aaron, I'll say this to you. Last year, when I was helping, or I used representation, when I was representing 4 employees who was injured at the container port, was terminated unjustly, no compensation, nothing to be rewarded to them for the injuries that they occurred on the job. We blocked the container port road last year to get some justice because you couldn't get no meeting with nobody in the container port to hear their cry. And I spoke to Mr. Smith and I told him, I said, you're going to wait till somebody die in this container port before you really face the value of these safety issues. And all he was interested in is that I have his operation shut down.
Yeah.
And it is sad to see that we lost lives last week due to negligence.
Mr. Barr, I talked about this book. This book, again, The Fate That Moved Mountains by Randall Fox, the father of the labor movement, right? We talked off camera about the labor minister. Where was the labor movements, the labor unions? I just heard a report yesterday that Obie Ferguson from the
TUC.
National TUC said that they will get down there and start to investigate. This a week later. What's going on with labor in the Bahamas?
Frankly, the labor representation in the ministry is dead. What has happened is, I'm presently, even though I'm a part of the Concerned Citizen, I'm also the vice president from the Grand Bahama Port Authority Workers Union.
Okay.
And we have been called on many times by this group to try and represent them. I think a few years ago, under the leadership of Harold Gray, who was the president of the union at the time, he made a motion to represent them. And through some unfortunate things happened. We had gotten the rights, but the government again, failing to do what is proper, gave another unionist also the rights. So he died, and therefore these men were left out in the cold without representation.
Yes.
But I would like to say we have been going through a series of problems in the labor movement all over the Bahamas, not only in Freeport, here in Nassau, the Out Islands in particular. And it seems as if we have yet to hear from the labor minister. In fact, I read on the plane over that the minister, along with the prime minister, along with Mr. Nico Grant, along with Mr. Turnquest, Tommy Turnquest, was on the premises. Up to the day, we still have anybody to say they actually saw the Minister of Labor there.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out, are these men put there just to receive a salary, but
they put
when
there
it comes
to
to the
work.
duties, they neglect it? Because we have been calling on the minister, and myself in particular, when we had our problem, still engaged in a problem with the minister. We had a problem where we requested his presence. In fact, we went through the proper procedure of attaining a strike vote and won it. And the minister, to frustrate the situation and benefit the foreigners again, and they were put there by the Bahamian people to represent the Bahamian people, he turned around and said he's going to invoke his ministerial authority and send us to the tribunal.
But it seems like people haven't been talking about the fact that this is a labor issue too. Aside from the fact that the weather office was closed and there was nothing put in place to replace that, aside from that, it's a labor problem. If it is said that the persons were asked to get back on the cranes or they lose their job, you
Right.
threatening my job and you making me get into unsafe territory.
Yes, but
and
yes.
here's what happened. 3 people died.
Right.
There again, I think our laws speak to intimidation on the job as well. But who carries it out? See, again, the Prime Minister, rightfully so, came right away after the tragedy. And the only report we've received so far was, well, management said this. Who are they representing?
Yeah.
Are they representing the Bahamian
Yeah,
people
it
or
seemed to
management?
me- it
They
seemed to
never
me-
have anything to say
Yes.
about the Bahamian people or the concerns.
It seemed
These
to
men
me
are
like
crying
that's a
out
problem.
with loud voices as to what injustice is going on up there at the
Yes.
Katina Port. And the ministry and the ministers and the government seems as if it has a deaf ear, because I have yet to hear anybody in the government, that be in opposition or present leading party, say anything pertaining to what the men are crying. All that's being said is the management said this and manager said that.
Yeah.
We are not.
And
Yeah.
the Prime Minister seems to be ringing the same tone.
Yes,
Right.
and I wouldn't speak about Mrs.
Hutchison
Grant.
Lampour has said that, well, Mrs. Grant seems to be off the scene. I don't know if she's still a member of Parliament.
I mean,
or she
3
is.
deaths.
Well, I haven't seen anything from her.
3 deaths, and the only thing she got to do is come out and sing the praises of Hutchison.
Yeah,
How?
Yeah.
that's foolish.
Nothing
Just-
is
just-
given. Nobody's given
nonsense.
consideration.
Just
for
to
Bahamian people.
add some light on the Minister of Labor, there's a union in Grand Bahama that the people already chose. They want them to represent the Dalukai Hotel. He has yet to answer them.
Yes.
They already signed everything that they wanted. He has yet to answer them.
This
And
labor ministry
this is what I don't understand. But, let me tell you something. The things that are happening in Grand Bahama is overwhelming for support. With VOPAC, the Prime Minister took it upon himself when we did demonstrate that we need some answers for VOPAC with the issues of the Pindus Point and Lewis Yard residents. Now he has taken the opportunity to ride through there himself, and he found it that he made a public statement that, yes, he have to relocate the residents of Pindus Point and Lewis Yard
because of the chemical
because of
issues.
because of the H2S and everything that's coming out of there, making the people sick, giving them cancer and all that. So we have all these issues. The Grand Bahama Power Company. Apparently, Mr. Kelly wasn't informed by Mr. Farrell. So Mr. Kelly needed to know that. And I would say to him, like I said on my show, we coming.
Yeah.
We coming. You are frustrating the people. You are actually,
Overcharged.
you're robbing the people.
Yeah.
If it's fair
Definitely
for me to
robbing.
say that you're robbing the people, that's white collar crime. You're taking away from the people. How is it that a person don't buy nothing else but light and getting a bill for over $200?
Yeah.
And the fuel is almost half of that.
When we were in Grand Bahama, I heard a lot of concerns from people about getting wrong power bills, getting bills for unusually large amounts, just because. Where are these bills coming from? And then Joe Fox, who was in Grand Bahama, who you
Right.
know is involved with the school
Yes.
in 8 Mile Rock,
Yes.
talked about having to go into the power company and fight for people, and they would then adjust the bills.
Yes, likewise myself. I took people in there. In actuality, we had a demonstration where a chain had to get put on the door because the people were frustrated.
Yeah.
And when you really go there and adjust the people bills, they come back and say, oh, it was an estimated bill. $500, $600.
Boy.
You take off $400, $500 off. So if those people, let me just draw this illustration. I had a friend from Canada staying in Lucayan Towers. We went and we turned off all of the power, turned off everything, went to the power company, disconnect the power,
Yes.
paid off all the bill. He went for 3 months. Every month he was getting a bill.
Man.
Until we got back and adjusted it to zero
They
balance.
sound like they as bad as BEC and Nassau.
Man, I wanted to touch
Anyway,
on
ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this break. And let me draw an illustration quickly. I'm quoting Mr. Garvey here. It says, the Bahamian people are more important than things, that the Bahamian men and women are more important than machines. It doesn't seem to be the case, because I've heard that the families have not gotten solutions as to what will happen for the children of those fathers. But new cranes have been ordered already. We'll be back after this break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. We just wrapped up our Freeport segment. We're going to change it up a little bit, but before we go to that, I just want to say, politicians, labor movement, stick to the script. They already did the work. Just read the books and follow the plan. We have here on the show Luby Georges. Mr. Georges is a good friend of mine, and also let's talk about your story a little bit, because this clip that I'm going to show afterwards reflects on it a bit. You were a student at L.W. Young. You were born in the Bahamas to two Haitian parents. You're a student at L.W. Young. You graduated the first graduating class of Doris Johnson High School.
Right.
But you don't have a passport. You don't have identification much beyond your driver's license. Talk about how it is to be a man without a country.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And, well, we all know it's a process.
Yeah,
We don't want to take away from that.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating, you know?
yeah,
Being that I grew up with you, I born in the same hospital as you, me and you went to the same schools, but your life is progressing, you moving on, but yet
Yeah.
mine is on hold because of what? The government or whoever the
piece
movers and
of
the shakers
paper.
are. Exactly.
yeah,
The movers and shakers on top, the people who on top, they know what's going on. They know it's a process, right? But why does the process have to be the way it is?
Yeah.
That's what we want to know, you know? We don't expect it to be a 1 day, 2 day, or 3 week thing.
yeah. It can't work like that.
No,
but it
because
gotta work.
It gotta work.
Yeah.
Why is it not working? Why do we have to be the ones, you know, our life put on hold, you know?
Yeah,
Growing up when we was younger or whatever, yeah, I used to traveling. But after 18, after you done submit your application and all that sort of stuff,
You can't.
as a man now, when you really need to be exposing yourself to the outer world to try gain some knowledge, and then you better appreciate where you
Response from the executives at the container port.
the world. You understand
yeah,
where I'm coming
yeah,
from?
Yeah,
Whether I say, I have to agree with you, whether it was before or after, that means you're telling me now that we lost 3 lives.
the cranes are
and
more important.
to make matters worse, you start those cranes right back up on when.
Right.
And I mean, how would I have done that without having a passport?
Exactly.
We wouldn't have been able to do it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have a clip to show you. I did an interview with Quentin Lightbourne and a show called The Voices of Bahamian Youth. Have a look at it, and then you'll be right back to us.
We need to form a stronger coalition between the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and the U.S. Coastal Guards, as they would have more resources to aid in the training and development of our own defense strategies.
Not dealing with things, we're dealing with.
William, no, there are some people, we talked about it before the break. I mean, I've heard some people in 2-bedroom apartments getting $2,000 bills. What's happening?
I I don't know about two people, but I can speak for myself. I can testify personally that I basically turn off everything in my house. When I'm leaving my house, I turn off breakers. I can confirm the fact that I have not used an electric stove but a gas stove for some time now because the gas stove has been damaged by a surge from Freeport Power. I could testify to all these things, but despite the fact unless there's some sort of complaint or something that you literally have to make noise in order to see a difference in your bill. You know, there has to be a difference. If I'm turning off my heater, if I'm turning off all of my, I'm turning off my switches, and like I said, I'm not using the electric stove and all of these things. There has to be a vast difference. It has to be a noticeable difference, and that difference is not evident from time to time. And they have just done a study where they said they confirmed that all their readings are accurate and so forth. So I guess no one can
say that too.
no one can claim that they're guesstimating, but at the same time, the proof is in the pudding. Let's see the difference. I've always had energy efficient bulbs in. I've always basically done everything, and not just because the price was high, not just because the power bill was high, but because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of these things, and since day one. 6 years I've been in that house, and for 6 years I've had the energy efficient bulb. I've turned off the heater when I'm not using it, and do all of these things that are necessary to make your footprint as small as possible. And at the end of the day, I should say when summertime comes, you don't really see the difference in the bill.
Right.
Yeah.
The only difference you see is when the winter comes.
Right.
My goodness.
And then, you know, what makes it so amazing, you go to the counter and you tell them, this can't be my bill. Then the person who's serving you, the customer representative, can say, turn off your air conditioning. Because you're buying an air conditioner. Come on, man. You can tell the people they're buying, they tell you we ain't buying it.
Yeah.
But then when you do check it, it's a compromise of the bill because of, like Mr. Williams said, guesstimating.
Yes.
But I can assure the Grand Bahamians are ready to stand for him again. Because we got results the last time when we demonstrated. When they put the chain on the door, or the Grand Bahama Power Company door, we got results. They used to turn your power off on Friday and nowhere to turn it back on until Monday.
That's sick.
That's absolutely disrespectful.
Yeah.
Friday evening.
And Friday evening.
I mean,
So we got results.
I don't understand how it's a monopoly.
Yes.
They are the only power serving company in Grand Bahama.
Yes.
How do these monopolies who are not Bahamian owned just feel like they could come to the Bahamas? The other day they shut down the Western Pay Station. They were getting ready to close that down. How you believe you could come to the Bahamas? You don't want to come to where we are to collect the bill. You want to shut our power off. The bill's wrong. And I mean, what?
No, but just for clarification.
Where's Nico Grant? Where's Ken Russell? Where's Shivago Lang? Where's Verne Grant? You got 3 ministers in Grand Bahama.
By all means.
You got 3 ministers.
Yes.
And then you got another 2.
Right. That's Kwesi Thompson.
Kwesi Thompson and Obi Wilscombe.
Right.
What? Obi Wilscombe say something. But what's happening, man?
Well, you know, let me clarify this first. The power company was not closing down their pay station in the West Grand Bahama.
Yeah, the Port
What
Authority
happened, the
was
Port Authority
closing.
had a water. They used to collect for the water there. But that still doesn't give the answer to why are they still charging people so much.
Yes.
Why? You know, that's a question that needs to really be answered. When we did what we did last year, the Prime Minister came back with the response that they were taking the profits out of the country in cash, and they were getting the fuel cheaper than anybody else.
Yeah.
So why is it that the burden is being put upon Grand Bahamians? This can't be acceptable.
Burden always passing down to the small man.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So let me give you the last words, Mr. Williams. Any other issues aside from VOPAC, aside from the power company, aside from the port, aside from all these big
Labor.
monopolies that
I just want to
labor
speak-
issues?
Labor.
I just want to
people
speak
taking advantage of
directly.
Grand Bahamians.
I want to speak directly to something you mentioned a moment ago, and you said where is Shivago Lang, where is Ken Russell and
Nico Grant.
and whomever, but
3 ministers.
I just asked the question I guess, a while back, and I said, when was the last time you saw an MP from any party on a talk show defending our environment, defending workers' rights,
Yeah,
defending the
they ain't
handicapped,
stuff like
defending...
that.
You
They're busy
understand?
doing something
And
else. I don't know what it is.
It's like, it's a situation where you can't see the forest for the trees. And I think it's time we stop looking at political leadership as the only leadership. And I think voices like yours, and I encourage you to continue to do what you're doing, voices like yours make much more difference than any politician can ever make. And a lot more can get done through avenues and forums such as this, as opposed to involving yourself in politics or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
that may
politics
be
isn't the
that
only
may be
avenue to
one's
get
aspiration, but at the end of the day, it has been proven. We have seen some very good men with good intentions involve themselves in any one of the political parties, and at the end of the day, their agenda becomes stifled. So
Yes,
we need to be
yes.
careful how we aspire toward those
Yeah,
ends.
they get clouded by the dogma of these parties and nothing happens.
Well, I just want to view just a second on that.
Yeah.
This is a new day.
Yeah.
This is a new
Definitely.
change. This is a 40-year generational shift by biblical terms. And so we're going to see a new representation. We're going to see a new politics. So that's what we're looking at. I just want to say to my supporters or the people who are facing these issues that it's time for us to stand again. I want to say to Mr. Etienne Farquharson Sr., thanks for being my advisor,
Yeah.
because he has plenty information for me.
Well, another issue I wanted to talk about briefly before we go to the break. Cynthia Donaldson, who is a senior citizen in Grand Bahama, brought to my attention that the hospital that the Right Honorable Hubert Ingram promised to Grand Bahamians still ain't get built.
Right.
And say what you mean and mean what you say is what he
Right.
says all the time.
Right.
But the hospital hasn't been built, and there are no plans to bring the hospital. These politicians really got to do better. They starting to make me and the rest of the Bahamian people sick.
Mr. Ferguson, I go back to the Hawkswood Creek Agreement, but that's a whole other show.
Oh, well, listen, them fellas blast Finland for that. But
Yes.
could you imagine if bend or break didn't happen, where Freeport would be?
Oh, boy.
Because I heard some speculation in Donna McCartney's book about bend or break being the reason for the Dissident 8 coming about, because
Yes.
they thought Finland was too unilateral. Now, I support Finland because he has his book, he has
Right.
his proof here. I support the proof
Right.
that is still relevant today. But before we go to a break, ladies and gentlemen, let me read to you a poem by a poet named Holland, who is in the book Sir Randall Fox, The Faith That Moved Mountains. God give us men and women. A time like this demands strong hearts, true faith, and ready hands. Men and women who lust of office that does not kill. Men and women whose spoils of office cannot buy. Men and women who possess opinions and a will. Men and women who have honor. Men and women who will not lie. Men and women who can stand before a demagogue and damn his treacherous flattery without winking. Tall men and women, sun-crowned men and women who live above the fog in public duty and in private thinking. That's Randall, folks. We'll be back right after this break. We had Luby Georges on. We talked about some very interesting issues. We'll see you next week. Join us on the website, www.citizensreviewtv.com. See you next week. Ladies Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. We just wrapped up our Freeport segment. We're going to change it up a little bit, but before we go to that, I just want to say, politicians, labor movement, stick to the script. They already did the work. Just read the books and follow the plan. We have here on the show Luby Georges. Mr. Georges is a good friend of mine, and also let's talk about your story a little bit, because this clip that I'm going to show afterwards reflects on it a bit. You were a student at L.W. Young. You're born in the Bahamas to two Haitian parents. You're a student at L.W. Young. You graduated the first graduating class of Doris Johnson High School.
Right.
But you don't have a passport. You don't have identification much beyond your driver's license. Talk about how it is to be a man without a country.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And, well, we all know it's a process.
Yeah.
We don't want to take away from that.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating, you know?
Yeah.
Being that I grew up with you, I born in the same hospital as you, me and you went to the same schools, but your life is progress and you moving on, but yet mine is on hold because of what? The government or whoever the movers and the shakers are. Exactly.
Yeah.
The movers and shakers on top, the people who on top, they know what's going on. They know it's a process, right? But why does the process have to be the way it is?
Yeah.
That's what we want to know, you know? We don't expect it to be a 1 day, 2 day, or 3 week thing.
Yeah, it can't work like that.
No,
but it
because
got to work.
It got to work.
Yeah.
Why is it not working? Why do we have to be the ones, you know, our life put on hold, you know?
Yeah.
Growing up when we was younger or whatever, yeah, I used to traveling. But after 18, after you done submit your application and all that sort of stuff,
You can't.
as a man now, when you really need to be exposing yourself to the outer world to try gain some knowledge, and then you better appreciate where you from and your country and all that because of seeing the world. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So we want to know why our process is taking
I mean,
so long.
I wouldn't have been able to go off to school. I wouldn't have been able. I've traveled to most of the United States, most of the Caribbean,
Right.
and I mean, how would I have done that without having a passport?
Exactly.
We wouldn't have been able to do it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have a clip to show you. I did an interview with Quentin Lightbourne and a show called The Voices of Bahamian Youth. Have a look at it, and then you'll be right back to us.
We need to form a stronger coalition between the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and the U.S. Coastal Guards, as they would have more resources to aid in the training and development of our own defense strategies.
Not dealing with things, we're dealing with people just like you and me.
We have ambassadors in all these countries. We can go to the countries, say, look, X, Y, Z, sort out your issue.
Immigration is a part of how we have become to be. I don't think there are many of us that can call ourselves native Bahamians.
Welcome to the Voice of the Bahamian Youth. This episode we're going to talk about the immigration problem in Bahamas and what we as young Bahamian youth think needs to be done to resolve this problem. You're going to hear from top youth, home and abroad, and pretty much you're going to bring a down-home and local aspect of the immigration problem. I'm glad to be back home. I'm to a spot where a lot of Bahamians probably don't know, but I just want you right now to sit back, relax, listen to the comments, and at the end, please feel free to comment and let us know your suggestions. Thank you very much. How do you feel about the immigration problem in the Bahamas?
Well, I think as Bahamians we have to become more educated about the idea or the concept of immigration. I think we limit it in our terms to repatriation and influx. And that's not, the idea of immigration is not just that simple. For example, there are immigration challenges all over the world. We're not the only country with this issue. So America has an immigration challenge. But New York deals with it a bit differently than anyone else, and Florida does too. Italy has an immigration challenge. I refrain from the word challenge. They have immigration issues. Paris has an immigration issue, and also Singapore. But Singapore deals with immigration completely differently, because immigration in Singapore is a means by which to spur the economic growth. They bring in immigrants in Singapore so that they could get the types of work that they need done. But a lot of people don't realize we do the same thing here in the Bahamas. When developers come in the Christie's plan to do anchor projects, every single developer brings in immigrants to complete the project necessary. So immigration can also be tied to the idea of economic growth, but in the Bahamas, the baseline workers, our front line, has said, okay, immigrants are taking jobs from us. So government's response is that they will repatriate and spend the money it takes to repatriate in order to stem that kind of political backlash from the baseline workers. What that also means is that government is suggesting that our economy is in fact contracting, because the ridding us of immigrants means that there is nothing for the immigrants and or the baseline workers to do. That's a problem, because that also suggests that the government has no plan for progress by which to slot the immigrants and make them productive members of society. So it's wrought with challenges.
It's really wrought with challenges, and you mentioned a few points. And you said about developers bringing in workers, and I fully agree with that. With the Bahamian society, look at it very differently. In the Bahamas, the immigration situation or issue is considered to be a problem, widespread, near and far. And why is because they feel as if that immigrants or some illegal immigrants don't contribute to the economy of the Bahamas. In terms, they take away. So I think the mindset of our Bahamian people, our beloved nation, is that we look at some immigrants as a burden to our society, which it is and can be factored in. But when we talk about these companies that you said they brought in, these are companies that come from Europe, and they bring in fellow Europeans, or they bring in a person from the Middle East. They bring in persons of their nationality into the country. If we look at it firsthand, the nationality that pretty much gives or invokes the most anger, I feel as if in the Bahamas, is Haitians.
Yeah, black people. Really.
Yes. And
because
then,
we've had that challenge with Jamaicans before.
that's well. Because, and they look at it like this. They feel as if that Haiti or Jamaica is not bringing a viable entity into the country. I'm sure, and I guarantee, black, red, yellow. If there was a Haitian investor that could pump $500 million into the country and build a sizable resort in any way, shape, or form, Bahamians would open them with open arms.
I'm not so sure about that, but I suppose that is true.
For the most part. And that is, I feel as if that is the problem at hand, because our sociological aspect about it, because we have our preconceived ideologies about Haitians and Haiti.
For example, Mayor Bloomberg in New York tells the United States president all the time, don't come in New York talking that foolishness about immigration. 30% of my inhabitants are immigrants. I need them so that my economy can continue to function. So get away from New York. When you start talking about border patrol, go down to Texas and have fun with that foolishness. So there are, even in the United States, mayors of cities, of city centers that say, okay, it's not that simple. For example, multinational corporations have really started this challenge.
Yes.
So I can get a box of Wheaties from the United States to Canada, to China, to Italy, to London in a matter of a day. But the products moving have given people the idea that if products can move, then people can move. World Trade Organization in the United States, the United Nations suggest, no, only products move. In the interest of capitalism. So people are growing their volume in terms of expanding their market with customers in different countries. But people are now saying, okay, well, if we're moving away from isolationism and moving into globalization, then I should be able to move too. You can move, but you can't stay. And people are finding challenges with that. So they're becoming creative. They're crossing borders in order to expand opportunity. Just like companies identify opportunity for products, people are identifying opportunities for themselves by moving freely in the global market. And it comes up to a little bit of a hypocritical issue, because if we can move products freely like that, people should feel like they can move freely, but we're saying no. It's only in the interest of profit generation.
And we have to look at it from that side, because I would hate for us to come to a society globally or nationally that we categorize human beings or human life as mere products.
Well, that's not a new idea
Yeah.
for us. From slavery time, humans were the product. That was the means by which to get stuff
And
done.
emancipation came about.
Yeah, emancipation came about, but it doesn't dismiss the fact that humans have been identified
Right.
and seen as just products. So it's not a far stretch for people
But
to
if it's
say,
a
okay,
product.
well, I can move just as freely as the product.
And with human beings, right, you have to realize there's a different factor of procreation out there. Then you have family structure comes involved, and it
Yeah.
plays a sociological mindset on the country itself. Because when you reach, say, you person comes at a time set, but they find out
Yeah.
they have children,
Yeah.
then it becomes a problem. Then you cannot freely take away a mother or a father away from a structured home. And so that's where the social, and that's why I feel that that's why we cannot fully categorize human beings compared to mere products.
Well, there are certain things in the Bahamas that we have to be honest about when it comes to immigration. One, our immigration problem is with other black people. We have identified the Haitians and Jamaicans as immigrants,
Please get rid of the Chinese.
But yeah, I mean, we deal with the Chinese every once in a while. But our constant challenge is with other black people coming into the Bahamas. So whenever we have an influx of white expatriates, nobody gets shaked up.
Yeah.
But when we have an influx of Haitians coming on a boat, all of a
So we
sudden
have to
we
change
have a
our
challenge.
mindset as a people.
All I'm saying is we have to become more educated about what immigration as a concept is. The government is not currently doing that. They're currently inspiring us to continue on this ignorant track of saying, get them out, get them out, get them out. But get them out means things. It means that the economy is contracting. It means that we don't have a plan for growth. Because if we had a plan for growth, we've been saying, bring them in. Because we have work for them to do, but we can't even get work for ourselves. So there are a lot of implications beyond the fact that we just want Haitians out. It's not that simple.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very informative dialogue with you, Mr. Ferguson. I feel as if that right now we as Bahamian youth must take a stand and do what we need to do to ensure that we change our mindset, that we change our rationale and logic at the immigration problem, and do what needs to be done. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this week's edition of Citizens Review. We had Luby Georges on. We talked about some very interesting issues. We'll see you next week. Join us on the website, www.citizensreviewtv.com. See you next week.